Hi and hello, football fans. It's your old pal Dave Dameshek. What's going down? I hope all's well wherever you are. Welcome to the Dave Dameshek football program, presented as always by McDonald's. All-day breakfast. Go get you some any time of the day. Hash browns will be waiting for you in one of those neat little paper sleeping bags that they
pockets that they have.
Right. Egg McMuffin, sausage McMuffin, whatever your pleasure, really. If it's breakfast, you can get it at McDonald's. Let's say hello to those joining me in Studio 66 right now. Two of my very favorites here from the NFL media. First of all, seated to my immediate left. Before we depart, and by the way, we'll talk a little combine here because I'm going to jump a flight and head over to Indianapolis in a matter of hours. But let's say hello to my man seated right to my left here. He's a Green Bay Packers fan. He talks fantasy. He writes about fantasy. He talks about the game called life. It's Alex Gelhar. What's the poop, fella?
Excited to be back here with Marcas now and talking all-day breakfast and combine and quarterbacks. It should be a good show.
Yeah, he just basically gave you a preview there. Well done there, Alex Gelhar. And then the aforementioned one, here he is, everybody. It's Marcas Grant. What's the poop with you, fella?
You know, they say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, so it's nice that we can have it all day whenever you want to
that is true. And in a way, that's the
point.
synergy between McDonald's and Dameshek. The most important meal with the most important show. Joining forces, two powerful brands made ever stronger by the union. You know, you understand how that makes sense? And I don't know if you've been reading the business trades, but McDonald's stock on the rise, its profits on the rise.
Shek stock on the
go.
rise.
Coincidence?
Oh,
Coincidence that McDonald's sort of
the old Dameshek bump.
your draft stock is going up now.
That's right. Well,
It's
it's
time
sort
for
of
the
like
combine.
I know the NFL adding one piece doesn't make a world of difference, but it's more like an NBA kind of situation here. You add one great piece, all of a sudden your franchise can turn around. McDonald's adds Dameshek. Never
There's
look
no
back.
I in McDonald's and no I in Dameshek either. So
That's
Wow.
right. That's right.
That was
We're really
deep.
putting it together. First question is, and we're going to continue our series about ranking the best quarterbacks ever. We're up to Super Bowl 40. We'll tell you who the best quarterbacks of all time were as of January 2006. That would have been right after the Pittsburgh Steelers defeated the Seattle Seahawks in Super Bowl 40 in Detroit, where I was at the 50-yard line, seated directly next to, I'm trying to think of that guy's name now, Jessica Alba's husband, Cash.
Cash Warren.
I sat right next to Cash Warren for Super Bowl 50.
Wow.
Did you know that he rooted for the Steelers?
Name dropper.
Wow.
I just know that.
Well, it's not like we were friends. I
just know that his father was an actor, an athlete at UCLA.
Is that true?
Bobby Warren was on Hill Street Blues.
That's his father?
That's his father.
Cash Warren's father is Bobby Warren,
From
the
Hill
guy.
Street Blues, played basketball at UCLA for John Wooden. Yeah.
Holy hell!
Yeah,
I
there you
had
go.
no idea. That's a terrific revelation. All right, so we're gonna do that, and then we want to get caught up on what's going on with some of these veterans who are contemplating retirement, have kind of announced retirement, and some other guys that are getting released right now. Names that you would know. Real quick though, what do we think about Gronk boat? I mean, now it's another excuse for the residents of Mount Pius to wring their hands and tisk tisk. That's my reaction to it. Marcas Grant.
I had this. I think everybody had this opinion formed in their head, this vision that it was just going to be some sort of floating bacchanal for like 3 or 4 days or whatever. And so I know Alex and I have talked about this. There was some disappointment when the reports came out that it was not nearly as debaucherous as we thought it was going to be. But whatever. I don't have a problem with him doing it. It's Gronk being Gronk, going out and having a good time. I mean, this is a guy who still shows up to work when it's time. He works hard. He's successful on the field. And, hey, he's a young single man who's enjoying his life, and good on him for it.
Right, he's working hard and he's playing even harder. I don't think there's any of us should begrudge him that just because he wants to throw a party on a boat and some beaches with friends and people he's never met instead of binge watching Making a Murder on Netflix. That's his decision.
We should all be so lucky.
Yeah.
So that you're on. You know what? Here's a sad admission by me. I think I'd probably take the Netflix option. Gronk can do whatever he wants to do short of committing felonies. I don't care what he gets into, really. And some things that are considered felonies in this country shouldn't be considered felonies anyway. But I'm not going to go in that route. I will say that would it interest me to be on a boat like that in that situation?
No.
I would hate to be on that one. That being said, I couldn't care less. And if it had been, hedonism delight, I don't care. He's in his 20s.
We talked about this the other day, too. I thought it would be fascinating to go there and just take it in and people watch. But since it was like a 3-day cruise, by like the middle of day 2, I think I would be like, how do I get off the boat now?
Yeah.
I've had my fill of Gronk partiness. Like, just let me
Much
back
like
to reality,
Groucho
please.
Marx would not want to be a member of any club that would have him as a member. I don't know that I would necessarily want to be on a boat with all the people who want to be on a Gronk boat.
That's exactly right. Yes, it doesn't appeal to me. However, this is the latest excuse for people to wring their hands and
it's not a
be
big deal.
concerned. Yeah, people don't have enough actual things to worry about, apparently.
Apparently.
Let's talk about so we can circle back to that. But what about this? I'm going to the combine, and it occurred to me the other day, shouldn't it be combine?
Well, what are you combining, though?
Yeah.
What do you mean, what am I combining? What's a combine?
A combine's a big tractor, isn't it?
Oh, well, that makes much better sense.
I'm not
I
saying it
stand
makes
corrected.
sense. I mean, what? It's in Indianapolis. It's in the heartland of America. Combines, tractors. I'm from California.
I
so
posed
know.
the query on Twitter, and somebody did give me a good response to that. They said, well, since it's in Indiana, the heartland and farming and all that, and the combine's purpose is to separate the wheat from the chaff, which is what a combine does. But I don't think I don't think the framers of the combine were that clever.
Is there a separate interpretation of combine that we're just forgetting? Or
I
don't know
looked it
about?
up in a dictionary, as a matter of fact.
Oh,
there
wow,
are
good.
different pronunciations. A combine is, as we say, a farming machine.
Right.
Combine is a word, can be a noun.
It's to add one thing to another.
It's a collective doing the same express thing. Clearly, it should be combine.
It just doesn't have as good of a
Wow.
ring to it, though.
The NFL scouting combine.
The combine. or maybe it should have a better name altogether. Can we think of a better name for it?
I don't.
Job fair.
Well, I'm glad you brought this point up.
The NFL job
The
fair.
Pro Football Job Fair.
I don't
like
think this is a take you should die with, Shek. Not like those people that pronounce encyclopedia or anything.
Yeah.
Just this was a good point. It was very interesting, but I think you should probably just let it go.
I can't. You know me too well to know that I'll let this.
I know that's why I'm trying to get ahead of it right now and
No
advise
chance.
you to just stop.
No, well, there are the pretentious people who insisted for about a decade while we walked the planet Earth that it was not Van Gogh, but in fact it was Van Gogh. And then that was dispelled, and they look like pretentious asses for the rest of
That
the time.
sounds awful, actually.
But I'm gonna do it. The NFL combine, and I'm
I
going
think
out.
I will join you in this.
I'm gonna go to the combine.
Don't encourage this.
Join me, Marcus Grant. It's the righteous path.
The scouting combine.
I'm going to the combine, as I mentioned, in just a few hours, and be on the lookout in the coming days. Pat McAfee is the ambassador to Indianapolis. He's going to show me his Indianapolis, so I'm looking forward to that. He's a Pittsburgh guy too. Fascinating fella, in fact. I was
He is.
kibitzing
He
with
is.
him. Did you know he won the punt pass kick competition?
Did he? He did.
Yeah.
Okay, see, now this is, by the way, I kind of have this beef a little bit. When it comes to Major League Baseball players who've been in the Little League World Series, it's like we know all of them. It's like, they trot these guys out and they talk to you about them. We don't seem to know all the people who won the punt, pass, and kick and yet have been in the NFL. All we see is the photo of Andy Reid, being some
Towering
sort of 250-pound 12-year-old and towering over all the other little kids. But we don't know. I know there's Brandon Manu Maliuna, who played tight end in the NFL. He was a punt, pass, and kick winner. But I feel like the league doesn't highlight these guys enough.
Couple issues with the punt pass kick competition. One is why there are 3 legs to it and 2 of them are kicking based. Shouldn't they modify that?
Well, you can't have punt running.
Sure, I
pass,
don't
punt,
catch.
pass, and
I don't
run
know
or
catch
something?
it.
I mean-
Run, see how fast you run. What is it? What kind of thing is that? See how fast you come off the edge and can sack a QB.
This
Why-
is a sport with foot in the name, though.
Oh, now all of a sudden we're worried about that. Now we have to. We better redress all of football then, because there's very little actual kicking going on in the great game of
Well,
football.
probably back when I don't even know the history of the punt, pass, and kick.
Nor do
but
I.
When it started, it might have still been more when the sport was more predicated on kicking.
Too much kicking for my taste, one, and my second beef, and probably the bigger one, is that they put those poor kids in a terrible spot annually by introducing them in between the third and fourth quarters of title games, and very often the home team's losing. So the home crowd wants nothing to do with it. They're like, hey, everybody, put your hands together for Martha James. She's your 11-year-old punt, pass, and kick winner from boo.
Well,
Nobody wanted
the worst is when they always have the kid who represents a team that is the rival of the team.
Yes.
Let's say, I remember, once they did it, I think in Oakland, and it was, and now representing the Denver Broncos. Boo! And you didn't hear the poor kid's name because as soon as they said Denver Broncos, it was pretty much all over.
Goth kid behind the glass. You just said that I should move on from this. You're bored already?
He is bored. Yes, he is bored.
Black tie, you're
Who
bored?
doesn't love a riveting punt, pass, and kick?
Right?
We just have a lot of stuff to get to.
It's February. I'm allowed to talk about the punt, pass, kick competition.
Also, in our
with
defense,
Gelhar and Marcas
who
Grant.
else is bringing you punt, pass, and kick hot takes like the Dave Dameshek football program?
Right?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Agreed.
I would probably guarantee it.
You know what I would call the punt, pass, and kick competition? I would call it a combine. That's what it is. It's a combine.
It is
You
a
see
youth,
how
a
it's
youth,
combined?
a youth combine.
Sweet. On that note, should we move along?
So now Alex wants to move on
now
too.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
McAfee won that thing, and then he also was apparently the best soccer player in the Pittsburgh area, which I guess is damning with faint praise, but nevertheless, he was the best at it as a youth. I don't know a lot of great soccer players when I was growing up, but then we talked about the fact that he and his father said, look, let's just see, because you're a great soccer player, let's see if you can kick a football, how it translates. First time he kicked it, he told me, 60-yard field goal. He made it.
Wow.
And then we got to talking. This is the magic bullet that everybody should do with their children. If your kid is good at soccer, see if he can kick a football. That's the business.
I wish I had listened to my father when he did that because I was a good soccer player, but I preferred to stick with soccer. I was like, I don't want to be a kicker. Like, nobody likes the kickers. And then I got older and I was in college, racking up student loan debt, and I'm seeing kickers sign like $15 million deals. And I'm like, oh, I made a horrible mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, in fact, say it says on the screen now, Shek, please move on to the next topic. Everybody's bored with my conversation that I'm trying to make with Gelhar.
Pat McAfee and punt, pass, and kick. Really?
That's right.
Top of the show, Shek. You got to hook your listeners.
No, we started the show with Gronk boat.
Yeah, we
Your
started with the
listeners.
Gronk
That's
boat.
right.
They're hooked.
We did the salacious Gronk boat at the top,
And I
sir.
teased quarterbacks later. They know, the crown jewel of the NFL.
The gold's
discussion is
coming. We're
coming
just
up.
getting our feet wet here, Black Tie. Lighten up, fella. What do you want to talk about? Whether or not the Warriors can beat the Cavs? Because a lot of people are now, are on Dameshek's train. What did I say?
Let's move on.
Let me just tell you what I said 2 months ago, and Black Tie scoffed how ridiculous you are.
I did scoff at how ridiculous.
Now you hear a lot of people saying that they should have done that. I submitted to Black Tie that the Clippers would do well to offer Chris Paul to the Cavs in exchange for Kyrie Irving. The Cavs would be crazy to say no to that. They're in win now mode. Black Tie said, "Oh, they would. Why would the Clippers ever want Kyrie Irving?" How say you now, Black Tie?
I completely agree. Like, why would the Clippers want Kyrie?
Because he's 6 years or 7 years younger.
I understand
than Chris
that.
Paul?
I think the Cavs have to add more to that deal, though. I don't think. Yeah, that's a different conversation.
Yeah,
move on.
Let's move on.
Marcus Grant likes the Warriors, though.
I am a Warriors fan.
I want to know what you think about this because people, for some reason, this conversation has resurfaced 2 months after we had it with Matt Money Smith. The 96 Bulls versus the current Warriors. Who wins that 7-game series?
I think under the current rules, as the rules in the NBA are, I think the Warriors win that series simply because, I think their ball movement may be a little bit better. I think they would have problems inside. I think the Bulls would create a tougher matchup in the paint. But on the perimeter, who do you guard? I mean, obviously you focus on Steph, but you still have Clay. Harrison Barnes can come off the bench and provide some solid minutes. So maybe it's homerism.
We don't think MJ and Scottie Pippen could.
Oh no, I
close
think
those two down.
I think they could definitely do a very good job on them. But there's so much with Steph. I mean, he is shooting lights. The guy's shooting like almost.
Gelhar just said it though. That would be. Jordan on Steph
and Scottie on Clay.
Scottie on Clay. Good night to both.
Well, but I think one of them. I think Iguodala ends up guarding one of those guys too.
And the X factor, as Matt Money Smith pointed out, is the worm, Dennis Rodman. He would do everything. They could go small.
I would love to see a Dennis Rodman Draymond Green matchup.
Oh, that'd be terrific. Black Tie, you still want us to move on now? You've had enough of NBA talk as well.
It's a broader conversation, so I don't want. It's a nuanced conversation. I don't want to have in 10 seconds. So.
I see we're even apologizing to the viewers
Yeah.
on the screen now.
Maybe
we should move
again,
on.
Shek, you're doing the whole one-on-one matchup thing when you're talking about team basketball. It doesn't apply.
Oh, Black Tie.
doesn't
Black
apply.
Tie's never noticed that the NBA often boils down to one-on-one
Actually,
matchups.
if
That's
you-
exactly
if
what
you're
it
watching
does.
the game,
I know that that's not what Golden State does,
They've
but for
moved
the
away from that.
preceding 25 years, that's exactly what basketball was.
But they've moved away from that. The Spurs championships, even the Miami championships, and the Warriors, they've moved away from that type of basketball.
All right.
Get
Now we'll talk about, and also I'm going to meet up with Greg Olson, another great fella from the NFL.
Indeed.
And apparently he might shave me, or there might be some shaving going on. I have a beard. He had his shave.
This sounds unseemly.
Best of luck to you and your beard.
I know. I offered to shave Andrew Luck. I'm going to be in Indianapolis. Maybe now's the time that I could shave him. In the meantime, Calvin Johnson, I want to kibitz about this. The day he announced his retirement, or he never.
Yes, he has yet to officially announce his retirement.
Right. Other people have reported, and we've heard the Lions say that they had a hint that he was going to retire, but it's a little weird now, right, Gelhar? I mean, I just flat out think we're going to see 81 in the, what do they call it, Honolulu Blue? In
Yes,
the Honolulu Blue
Blue.
come 2016.
I don't know. It seems like this writing's been on the wall for a while. The last couple years, he has had to soldier through a lot of injuries, and I just think he might be past the point of coming back. He's made more money than he ever needs. Like, that team's not exactly going to be gunning for a championship next year unless they maybe add some pieces in free agency, and he'd have to restructure his deal. But I don't know. I think he might just be hanging him up. Might be following the Barry Sanders path.
I think there's a chance, and I think the Lions would need him for this to be true. But I have a feeling that NFC North is going to be mighty in 2016. The Packers bounce back, right? The Vikings are here to stay. I would think. I think Teddy Bridgewater can only get better from where he was this past season. And the Lions were quietly pretty good this year. I know that they were sort of a train wreck for a month there, but I think on the whole they played quietly good ball.
They got better once Jim Bob Cooter started calling the shots for the offense.
And they really essentially beat the Seahawks in Seattle, and they essentially beat the Packers in Detroit, and they had a couple of tough ones go against them that way. They weren't really that far off from where they were the year prior. Marcus Grant, is Calvin Johnson playing next year?
I don't think so. I think he's done. And I think you're going to start to see it more. I mean, we've seen a lot of guys retire fairly early, kind of citing health concerns and that sort of thing. And I think you're going to see some guys. The goal, I know, for a lot of players is to get to that second contract because that's where the big money is.
Right.
And I think you'll see a lot of guys get to and through that second contract. And if you're able to make money the way Calvin Johnson has, the way guys, 10, 15, 20 years ago never were, I do think that a lot of guys are going to look at this and look at, their future down the road and say, okay, is my continuing to play worth the lingering health issues I'm going to face when I'm done playing? And I do think you're going to start to see more guys who retire at 31, 32 years old. I mean, there will always be those guys who play 15, 18, 20 years. That will always happen. But I think you're going to start to see fewer of those guys as they start to kind of weigh the risk versus the reward.
I completely agree with that, and I also think the pendulum swings the other way, which is to say the teams are going to start. I think you're going to see this more and more and more and more. Savvy teams, at least, are not going to pay the big second contract to running backs, the position that suffers most from that attrition that happens in the first few years. Specifically, the Steelers are going to have a decision to make on Le'Veon Bell. I think few argue that he would appear to be, when right, the best runner in the game right now, the most complete running back. But would the Steelers do well to pony up what it's going to take to keep him? $12 million a year, $10 million a year? After this following year, I say no. I think that I think they are going to grab a running back in the draft somewhere, round 2, round 3, somewhere around where they got Bell, and try to move on from him. I think that's going to become the savvy play.
Just think that the day of the $10 million running back contract has kind of gone by the wayside. We saw DeMarco Murray was coming off his best statistical year, and everything seemed to be lining up for him. And his contract is only like $7 million a year, I think. 7 or 8.
It was definitely less than what people, I think, had anticipated
Back in the day,
going into that.
I think the market has kind of already adjusted, so I don't think teams are going to have to pony up that dough, but they might even be hesitant to go that much. Like, that's what Doug Martin's seeking right now, and we'll see in a couple weeks when free agency starts if Tampa's going to do that, or if somebody else is, or if he's going to have to take a lesser deal.
Well, in the meantime, some big names are starting to get cut. We see Marcus Colston is getting cut by the Saints. No surprise there. I didn't know that he had been in the league post 2009. I haven't noticed him actually doing anything over the last several years. Peyton Manning, will he be playing pro football? And if so, where? And I talked about this last week, I like the fit. It's weird to say, but it makes sense to me if you're the Rams going after Peyton.
No.
I kind of like that, kind of for a novelty sort of
Yeah,
thing.
no.
I mean,
I enjoy watching football. I do not want to see Peyton Manning.
I don't either, but
noodle arming it to that.
I'm saying
inept wide
I
receiver
get it
core.
if you're the I'm not saying it's a smart move, but I get it if you're the Rams.
you've moved
All
back to
pass.
Los Angeles where you know you need star power. Why not make a splash
Yeah,
and
right.
bring in Peyton Manning? I mean, yeah, from a football standpoint, it makes zero sense at all. But like from having lived in this town for pretty much 15 years and seeing how this thing works, yeah, the Hollywood Dream Factory cranks up if Peyton Manning maybe leads the Rams out onto the field at the Coliseum in that first game. That
Having liked Peyton Manning throughout his career and admiring what he's done on the football field, he has the rare opportunity to go out on top right now. He didn't even get to do it like John Elway, where he did well at the end.
Plainly don't care
I
at
know.
all about that.
I know. However, what we don't want to see is him come out and do a 2010 Brett Favre. Like Manning was already bad enough this year, battling through his injuries and other things. We do not want to see him come out and just completely fall apart on the football field. That would be sad.
Well,
to see his career end that way.
Well, by the way, he already
Whereas-
did that in 2015.
That's
Somehow
what I'm
he
saying.
still also
That's what
won
I'm
a
saying.
Super Bowl. I
But,
don't know
what
how
I'm
that
saying.
happened.
but see, what I said about Peyton Manning, and I'm not the only one who said this. I know our friend Chris Westling has made the same analogy that, for instance, people my father's generation talk about Willie Mays at the end of his career with the Mets and, falling down in the outfield. And it kind of felt that way for Peyton Manning at times last year. If he goes to the Rams, it will truly be that
There
level.
is, and players can say, I don't care about that, but I think they do care is the irony. But in the moment, it's not as important to them as I want one more. I want to keep going. I don't want to quit there.
Let's also
what one more what though? It's for Peyton at this point.
They
what
like
more could you want? Like what is like Marcus is saying the Rams? Like what's the point?
They enjoy the process.
I mean, the thing is, too,
whether
some
it's
of
that
these-
you enjoy breaking down a team or what do you always hear? There's not, I'm going to remember the games.
It's the camaraderie in the locker
I love
room.
hanging out in the locker room and on the flights.
also,
That's all the fun. I'm going to miss that.
a
They
lot
love
of these
that.
guys don't know anything else other than football. Like it's a huge culture shock for them when they do retire because this has been their existence forever, and you lose that structure and stuff. I think a lot of guys, it takes them aback. Like
It's the same people, and I'm guilty of that too because I love the story, the way that puts a bow on your career. I would want to go out on top, go out a champ and walk off into the sunset and all that. But it's the same thing as why does Robert De Niro make so many garbage movies? Why did he just make that picture with the handsome guy? What's
Zac
the
Efron, Dirty Grandpa.
Dirty Grandpa. Why'd he make that movie? Because it's fun. That's why. Because it's 3 months on a movie set. It's fun living. Why does Steve Martin? Why would he dare do Inspector Clouseau? Same reason.
Yeah,
It's fun to do that.
except
Why
that-
does Adam Sandler make terrible movies every year? Because it's
creates
fun to make
jobs.
movies.
He creates jobs for all his buddies too.
Plus-
Nick Cage.
You can
He's funny.
get older and you can hit that role near later in your life where you're like, okay, maybe I made a bunch of trash movies for the last, but I found that one role late in my career. Peyton's not getting any better. Peyton can keep running out there. He's not going to get any better. There's not going to be some magical 2016 resurrection of Peyton Manning, and we're going to think it's like 2008 again. And
Well, the question is, really it comes back to not just for. I don't even think it's ego so much as maybe a Gelhar's. There's a portion of it that probably is right that you don't want the lights to go off. That that you like being the man, and once that goes away, what's going to become of my life, and where is the rest of it going to be anticlimactic? I can see some of that being the case. Maybe there's a business element to it that lets him
he's
promote
been very
his-
good to pop his sponsors recently in the last year or so.
I mean, I do kind of get it. I don't think it's wise, but I can see, and if from the Rams standpoint, right, it would certainly ensure the seats being filled up.
No, I want no part of it. Also, why would he go into a division where he'd have to face the Seahawks and the Cardinals 2 times a year with those defenses?
That would be a lot of wear and tear on.
That would be
him
that would be a lot of these sacks again, where he flops down onto the ground.
Look how neatly you just pivoted. That's the first time I've heard it done so casually that when you invoke the NFC West, you didn't even try to mention the Niners. You didn't have to say, almost had to catch myself. It's the Cardinals, not the Niners.
Yeah, no. I think that ship has sailed.
Who's the quarterback for the LA Rams in 2016? Is it rgIII?
Chase Daniel?
Really?
I don't know.
No.
No, I don't know.
RG3 could go there. I wouldn't mind seeing him go to Houston actually and working with the notorious B.O.B. Bill O'Brien down there.
I don't see any sign that that's what.
It doesn't sound like it's
suits
going to go
Bill
there.
O'Brien.
No.
I know people like to put him there because they need a QB, but Christian Hackenberg makes too much sense in my book. They have a history
They have
together.
history together.
Yeah.
That
And there were reports swirling that he might do anything he can to get Hackenberg, which could toss up the whole
I mean, I think people talk about and the Rams aren't really a terrible fit. I mean, it would be interesting to have a backfield of Robert Griffin and Todd Gurley.
Yes.
And maybe delivering the ball to Tavon Austin every so often.
That sounds good, right?
It does
that
sound
sounds
very
fun.
good. It does sound a lot of fun. Although I feel like Jeff Fisher would find a way to suck the fun out of all of that.
Yes.
I
It would
also
still lead to a 7-9 season.
Of course it would. I also think it would be interesting to see if the 49ers maybe make a run at you mentioned
At
them not
RG3?
kind of being in the mix right now in the NFC West, but making a run at RG3, especially if they can't come to some sort of agreement with Colin Kaepernick right now. Chip Kelly is in there with his offense, and Sam Bradford obviously wasn't the guy to run it. Nick Foles was not the guy to run it. You wonder if maybe they put their trust in Robert Griffin III and let him be athletic again, if maybe he works out well in that offense.
Well, the dream scenario for me that I started talking about, I think in September, was I don't care where they do it, but I want Cap and RG3 all through August. That's and I want Hard Knocks there. That's the three-way I have to insist upon. RG3, Cap, and the cameras of Hard Knocks all in the same place, covering that for a month.
So then let's send them to Buffalo. So then you got Rex and Rob Ryan with RG3, Kaepernick, and all that stuff together.
Tyrod's there. They're good.
Okay. Well, and then the other thing is, I wonder if Chip Kelly's, his arrogance or whatever you would call it, hubris or whatever, or however else you want to define it, does it go so far as him not learning from his Philly mistakes? Will he try to get Sam Bradford to jump out to the Bay?
I think
I would certainly be worried about that.
I think that Chip Kelly in San Francisco will either be spectacularly great, or spectacularly bad, and nothing in between. And it's about whether Chip Kelly's learned his lessons about being able to play nice with others. It's about whether the ownership, Jed York and Trent Baalke have figured out how to deal with a headstrong, kind of very egotistical, iconoclast coach.
All right, let's talk about RG3 and Cap. Very different players, but people put them together as being basically the same, and I can certainly see why. Will either one of those guys, both, neither, or one or the other, ever achieve anything close to the heights that we actually saw them play at with our own two eyes, or the heights that we expected them to reach?
Ooh.
Man, that's a good question.
I don't know that RG3 will ever reach the heights we expected of him coming out of Baylor and after that first year. I mean, after that first year, maybe tongue-in-cheek, there was like Hall of Fame talk about, he's going to be the future of quarterbacking. He and Andrew Luck are going to change the game.
Listen, he is it for me, and we talked about it. Cam Newton, Dan Marino, and RG3 had the three rookie.
Right.
In fact, I often miscategorize that. Marino's the 48 touchdown season is the greatest quarterback season in history. That was, in fact, his sophomore season. So the numbers were there in his rookie season, but certainly don't match up with Cam or RG3. So anyway.
It's so hard because both right now are kind of broken players. Like, you watch RG3's tape before he ended up getting benched for Kirk Cousins, and he was just – it was bad. He was missing open players, and same with Colin Kaepernick. Like, people called him out on it, but then when you would watch him playing for the Niners last year, it was his first read, and then if that wasn't there, he would run. So a lot depends on it. Like, I can't really pick a player right now, but it would need to be a situation where they'd have to get with a coach that is able to break them down and rebuild them, sort of thing.
I suppose I agree with that logic, but I don't buy the health thing for RG3. I feel like it's psychological. So yeah, so there's.
It was more so. He lost sight of it and stuff like that, and he totally.
I want answers. I don't want speculation. Gelhar, I start with you. Everybody's got to go in now, or shame the devil. And I don't know what we're putting on the line here. Digits? Are we going to put fingers on this? Toes?
So I have to pick
hairstyles.
I have to lose fingers.
I don't know what. It's all on the table right now.
Which one has a better chance of getting close to those heights again?
Everybody loves to shoot their mouths off. Let's shoot our mouths off and have it mean something.
I would pick RG3.
So Kaepernick will never be good again. RG3 will be good again, says Gelhar. Is that right?
Sure, if that's the way we're framing these arguments, yes. I would think
You could go neither. You could say neither.
I just think RG3 would have a better shot if you're forcing me to pull the trigger on one.
I think RG3 is closer to being back to where he was because he has skills.
How could that be true? We haven't seen him play in a year
because,
now.
well, I
How
say
do
that
we know?
because he's got a skill set that Kaepernick still hasn't learned yet. And Kaepernick was
okay.
fun to watch, when he was playing well. He has a fastball, and someone needs to teach him a changeup. Someone needs to teach him touch. Someone needs to teach him accuracy. And when RG3 was right, he had all of those things. And I think for him, it really is more mental. It's about, building his confidence. Teaching him how to slide certainly would help. But building his confidence again and kind of getting him back mentally to where he was coming out of Baylor. But in terms of skill set, I think he's far ahead of Colin Kaepernick.
So here's what would be fun. Have the Packers sign him for very cheap, RG3 for very cheap in free agency. Mike McCarthy has his notorious quarterback school. They've trained up a lot of good people behind Aaron Rodgers and shipped him off for draft picks. Have him kind of break down, get RG3 back into that West Coast system, and then the Packers can trade him off for a second-round pick later or something.
I love that idea. While Brett Hundley, the UCLA kid, continues to be groomed to one day take over for Aaron Rodgers.
Or also be traded for a second or third-round draft pick.
All right, real quick, what do we think about? Well, yeah, another one. They could just deal him away too. All right, best place Kaepernick. I think that could work for him. Running around back there, if they can fix that defense. San Francisco, I don't know that he has to move somewhere else. I'd love to see him though more than anywhere. More than RG3. I'd love to see Cap land in LA. I'd like to see him be the Rams QB for 2016.
That'd be interesting.
They have pieces, like you say. Imagine you put him in the backfield with Todd Gurley behind an offensive line that's getting a little bit better. They beef that up a little bit more via free agency and the draft. You protect him. You have some playmakers, if nothing else, plus Todd Gurley. So you have some guys in the passing game, and then you let the defense dominate, and that's that.
Here's an interesting thought for you. To take Colin Kaepernick, presuming Peyton Manning is not coming back to Denver, and put him there with the Broncos. Put him in that pistol offense that he ran in college at Nevada with C.J. Anderson. Let him get out of the pocket, maybe make, get some scramble drills. Help Demaryius Thomas do something to get open because he really struggled a lot last year. Do something to kind of move that offense around. And maybe he finds himself in Denver there with a good defense to help out as well.
That's exactly right. And it's funny to put a bow on it. I think it's interesting that as recently as 6 weeks ago or so, we sat in Studio 66 and talked about, boy, if you don't have your quarterback on your roster now, good luck, because it ain't coming in 2016. Doesn't it feel like there's some good quarterback, not good or not guaranteed, but some compelling options at least? No one
after free agency?
Both. Carson Wentz suddenly feels like a guy who Jared Goff people are very excited about. Cap and RG3, as we discussed, are intriguing at least.
They're guys that you like as long as you don't have to plug them in right now. If you can be patient, if you're willing to be patient and let these guys develop a little bit, I think you do have some good quarterback options. But if you're drafting or signing one of these guys thinking that, this is going to be the piece that gets us over the hump, you're going to be very disappointed.
All right. Next up, we're going to do our quarterback ranking, but you did mention Gelhar just before we got going here. I always love the cliches. What are some specific scout/combine based cliches?
Well, Marcus and I
hear
have
a lot of in the next
been
week.
having to help out Chip in now that the fantasy season is over, editing Lance Zierlein's great combine and draft profiles, and there's some fantastic scout speak. Do you want to start with one?
Sand in the pants is one we see very often.
Sand in the pants.
Sand in the pants is the one that
meaning sand in the pants. Slow?
Basically no. It means that basically you kind of have like a
anchor, like they can't
sturdy
move
lower base.
want
Especially for
base,
for like
yes.
blocking and stuff. Like running backs who can't necessarily block in pass protection don't necessarily have enough sand in the pants.
There's a different turn of phrase they use frequently, referring to the bubble or a bubble butt, which is for people that have great explosion, because that's where it all comes from, is your glutes. So guys that have a large posterior is referred to as.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So if you have a big round bum, that's good news.
That's where
depending on what you're doing.
Position, that's where the explosion.
That sounds good for our old pal Maurice Jones-Drew. He's got one of those nice bubbles.
One of my favorite ones that I mentioned to you before we were starting too was that I saw. I believe it was in regards to a lineman, but he was referred to having subtle hand play.
I just
take it as you will.
Oh, we need appropriate use. Some light tinkling on the keys there. I mean the old classic ball skills. I
Yeah,
always like
ball
a guy who's
skills.
got
Ball
the
skills. I mean,
We have seen the lunch pail thing
I
thrown
do
around.
believe, and somebody have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think somewhere on NFL.com there is kind of a Mayock scout speak glossary
is.
that includes like heavy-legged waist bender and that sort of thing, which is always one of my favorites.
Well, the gold standard of awful cliches is in basketball is that has really emerged. I think just in the last 10 years is
Score
this
the
guy
ball.
knows how to score the ball,
Score the
I-
ball.
score the basket.
That's something people say.
Up until
Yes.
oh yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, my
I've heard quite a bit of
word.
that.
score the ball. What on earth do you think? Outside of Sean Kemp and Antonio Cromartie, what do you think we're talking about? Do you need the ball? He knows how to score. That's all right. We'll do the math. We got it from Scout. Also, then again, I was talking the other. That's not a scout one. This is more an analyst speak. Is exotic defenses.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, exotic blitz packages.
Well,
Also,
Mike
dial
Mularkey is going to run an exotic smash
Smash
mouth
mouth, yep.
offense.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. If it's in Nashville, Tennessee, it's probably not exotic. Just as Dick LeBeau's blitz packages can't be exotic when they were created on the Ohio-Pennsylvania border.
Very true.
Don't believe me? Go pay a visit to the Ohio-Pennsylvania border and tell me what you see that's so exotic out there. Anywho, all right. Now let's move on to the matter at hand. Oh, you know what? I also discovered Spotify. Am I late to the party
You
on
are.
Spotify?
You're very late.
But welcome.
Shek,
Welcome aboard.
how does your mind work when you're trying to transition into a topic? Like, how does it actually work? Like, take it like visually, because you're about to get to point B, but you always take a detour to A point.
It's only things flash in my brain when I'm about to start something new, like, oh, I had other things I wanted to do, and only then, with the pressure of needing to go to something else, do I then seize on, oh, yes, I didn't get to that.
It feels sort of like going to Costco with my girlfriend where, we're looking like, hey, we are here because we need to get steaks. And we're walking toward the steaks, and suddenly, hey, look, pillows. We don't need pillows. We need steaks.
That's anytime you go to Target, too. You walk in with a list of 5 things, and you walk out with like $140 on your receipt. You're
Right.
like, wait a minute, what?
How did this
Like,
happen?
who put this stuff in my cart?
Right.
You
Shop
could
in
really,
bulk.
yeah, it
Shop in
really
bulk.
could be like a shopping center, could just be a combined center, is what it is. 'Cause it has everything at Costco. That's like Dameshek's, weird train of thought. I don't know.
We
My
play
brain is
we
a
play
combine
we
of
play a drinking game
unrelated
behind the
items.
glass.
What's that?
We play a drinking game behind the glass every time you're about to transition to the topic and you stop on your way there. So we're almost, tipsy.
I think, either way, if you don't know this Spotify, this thing, you just summon up a song, then you save it to a playlist, then it's there for all of time. It's terrific.
Yeah, it is
pretty
the best
fantastic.
of iTunes and Pandora kind of mixed it.
I want to create the DDFP playlist, and then you can share it too.
Yes.
You can share
Yes.
it with the world. Let's do that.
Shek's so astonished by technology. Well, you can create a playlist.
I'm
and
gonna do
share
it.
on social media.
That's right. It's
know,
a mixtape. I used to make mixtapes.
There
when I was,
are good playlists that have already been created and shared on social media from people within this office. Chris Wesseling famously has a Best Breakups song playlist,
best bro-
and Dan Hans has just released a Deep Cuts 90s alternative playlist, which I listened to last Friday, and it was pretty fantastic.
I can't believe that would be true.
How it was good.
That it was good or that he made one?
That Dan Hansis would create a good one. He has bad taste in music.
Dan Hansis is kind of it's interesting having spent some time with those guys outside of the office environment. That Chris Wesseling is known as having the great Spotify playlist. Dan Hansis is known more as a jukebox curator. That
He's good on the jukebox.
he's good on the jukebox and putting together a playlist that way.
Huh. Interesting. So it's just your favorite songs, basically, or you can have themes.
You have themes or what have you. Yeah, I have one that is kind of drum heavy. I call it percussion symptoms. It's good.
All right. I'm going to work on this. I'd like to hear Ike's would be, we got to get Ike Taylor's Spotify list, and we'll just share them out, right?
I got movie scores on lock.
Oh, yeah, Black Tie. That's his favorite kind of music, Do you know that?
I listen to movie scores a lot when I'm writing and stuff for work because
workout
you take the some are good for workouts, but you take the lyrics out of it so it's less distracting and the music is just relaxing and keeps you focused on.
You know what was on the other day was Brokeback Mountain, and that has one of the most heartbreaking scores ever. That music makes you
It's a
just about
fantastic
weep.
film.
It is a great picture. A lot of people bothered by it because they're uncomfortable with themselves. I think. I don't know. Why.
Yeah.
It's a very sad movie.
It is. It's heartbreaking.
At the end, when he finds the shirt, he has his shirt and is in the closet.
Way to bring the show down.
Black Tie. Have you seen that movie?
I have not seen.
I was going to say
not
there's
surprised.
no chance. Black Tie has
I
seen
remember
that
when it was making the rounds and winning the awards. I was like, yeah.
It's about that time
I'm
of
a
year where we have to
guy.
assign Black Tie a new batch of movies to watch
Oh,
for
the tournament.
2016.
I would love to help
The tournament.
curate the list.
Well, go ahead and throw one out there for Black Tie that he has to see.
Wow, you're putting me on the spot now. I forget what was in the last round of
Last year we
16
did the
was-
breakish
there was,
movies
like,
I never saw.
Raiders and The Godfather and stuff was all in there, correct?
Right.
This
Year
was-
movies.
was-
Let's make movies that'll make Black Tie feel uncomfortable.
Well, I was going to ask, was The Big Lebowski on that
I
list?
was like, The Big
And
Lebowski
has
should be.
Black Tie
He
seen
should.
it?
He should see it.
Was not on that list. So it's the first entry into this year's list.
Oh,
It's
okay.
gotta be.
So that's a number
It-
one seed coming in.
I feel like it's a one.
I don't
seed.
want to get it inside Black Tie's head, but there's no way he's gonna like The Big Lebowski. That's a weird movie for. Have you seen any Coen Brothers movies, Black Tie?
I have to run through the list.
Fargo.
Did I see Fargo? No.
No Country for Old Men.
Didn't see that. We're already
Raising,
put it.
Ah.
Arizona. I'm sure you've never
Nope.
seen.
He's over the Coen Brothers. He's never seen any Coen Brothers movie. That's
Yeah, look that up.
crazy.
Yeah, look that up. I'm looking
He's
it up
probably
right
seen
now.
like
He just named the
Intolerable
biggest
Cruelty
three.
is like the one he's probably seen.
Looking it up right now.
That's we should just have a Coen
He's
Brothers
like, I think
marathon.
a Coen Brothers
I'm not
film
into,
festival.
What's the new movie they have coming up?
Hail Caesar.
Yeah. I'm
Is
not-
it Coen? I mean, is it Fargo for Black Tie if he's never seen a movie by the Coen Brothers?
I
Which is
guess
the one?
Fargo's probably the better one. That's a better entry point into the Coens.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll like that, Black Tie. You'll enjoy that movie. Go
Fargo's
see
fantastic.
Fargo. Yeah, Raising Arizona
I mean,
is also
Lebowski
funny
is,
as-
is honestly one of my favorite films, but it's very character driven. It's all about kind of the kooky, weird characters that he encounters. And I mean, obviously, the dude is maybe the kookiest of them all.
Black Tie won't like that movie. I think I have a fair sense for what he enjoys, and that won't be for
Don't
Fargo.
try to peg me there.
What about Blade Runner? Was that on the last list, and is that one we should include for him?
I'd like Black Tie to see that. He doesn't love all sci-fi, though. This is
Yeah, I'm
dreary
picky.
sci-fi.
This is
What
film
about
noir sci-fi.
What about Alien or Aliens?
I did see Prometheus, and I wasn't interested
Oh,
in going
God,
back to
no.
see it.
No, it's bad.
Prometheus-
Don't.
Well, I know
No.
it's bad, but it got me interested in seeing Alien. It's
Okay.
that time, you know.
I
Now,
would-
mind
I-
you,
I would-
Alien
Land.
and Aliens are very different
Very-
films.
Alien is like straight horror. Aliens is action.
Kind of action sci-fi.
I would go Aliens, given a choice.
I think Aliens would be a good entry point for you too, for that series, and then you could go back and watch Alien to see where it all began.
Yeah, let's go. So, all right, we're putting a nice list of 2016 movies.
Like I
all right,
said,
now let's jump to them. We'll listen. What we have time to do when we're done here. Black Tie was over this show 20 seconds after it started. Never. Oh, by the way, you guys are still. Doing
Oh, there we go. He did it again.
I didn't promote.
Drink.
The NFL Fantasy Live podcast.
Oh, well,
which
thank
is
you.
ongoing through the off season.
Yes,
here.
it is.
Don't tune out there. Something else. Now I am getting random in my brain now. I was thinking about this because yesterday I was by the elevators and somebody did that move. I was
Getting
waiting for
drunk
my
back here,
elevator. What?
they're getting drunk back there.
here.
So be it. See, congratulations and you're welcome. I was at the elevator and somebody walked up. Obviously, I had pushed the button as it being illuminated would indicate to any human being, and so the guy walked up and pushed the button. That enrages me.
I feel like
I want to scold you. I want to say I want to push you down the shaft.
I feel like it's a mild form of OCD, just having to touch it
Have to do
sort
it.
of thing. But what's worse, that or the person at the crosswalk who pushes the button a million times, just keeps just jabbing the button over and over again as though somehow that's going to speed up the light.
I mean, I can't really. I mean, there are no winners there. I mean, there's I don't know what they're
Now,
both obnoxious.
In the defense of the elevator one, perhaps there was a thought that by pushing the button again, it's going to help the doors close. Like, as if that was conclusive for them somehow. Maybe that is another symbol.
Why are you making excuses for
I'm
these
just
people?
playing devil's
This is
advocate.
This is enabling.
I'm trying to get a healthy discussion and some good conflict for the viewers at home or listeners.
I don't like where your head's at. Don't let these people
Speaking
off the hook.
Speaking of conflict, let's get onto your list.
We must shame these people. We must expose them. All right, I'll move on. If that's your wish, you're our
No,
guest.
I mean we can
Gelhar.
keep going on it, but I mean you were talking about conflict, and we've got a good list to
All
discuss
right,
here.
here we go. We've done it. We started at Super Bowl 10, then we went to 20.
I was
then-
here for that one. I was here for the kickoff.
And then we did 30 on our most recent podcast. Now it's time. And by the way, programming note, we're doing another podcast from Indianapolis. Me, Ike Taylor, Maurice Jones-Drew. And
Does that count as another segue within the segue? I think it does.
was
I think you guys
promoting
have
that.
to
I legitimately gave some thought to asking these two guys to rank the top 5 quarterbacks in fantasy in 2016. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm moving on to the matter at hand, and that is as of Super Bowl 40. Who were the greatest quarterbacks? And the reason we're doing this again, if you're curious what the point of it is, I at least find it intriguing that there are certain assumptions made, sort of like Marcus Grant did 10 minutes ago when he said, well, if you go to play, if Peyton goes to the, or you did, Gelhar, if you go to the NFC West, then you have to go and play the Cardinals and the Seahawks defense. It's very easy. Like if you ask a lot of people who are the best quarterbacks in the NFL, until very recently, as within the last 3 or 4 months, everybody for the last 15 years. Oh, Peyton, Brady, and Breeze. Peyton, Brady, and Breeze. Well, it's not really true anymore. Don't you have to put Rodgers in there? Isn't Roethlisberger in the conversation?
Rodgers has been there for a couple of years now.
But people struggle to make that turn when they would talk about that. It gets to be empty rhetoric at some point. It's like Peyton, Brady, Breeze, Peyton, Brady, Breeze, the big three. Like, well, are you watching them play? Because those guys aren't the 3 best compared to some other. Anyway. Same sort of thing. You have to address these things to see how these things evolve over the decade. And now we're to 2006, I guess let's say February of 2006. The Steelers have just won. Ben Roethlisberger just completed his sophomore season. He had yet to have the motorcycle accident. He's not going to make this list at Super Bowl 40. Let's count it down now, or count it up. I'll go from 10 down to 1 for the audio listener. At number 10, as of Super Bowl 40, Peyton Manning is the 10th best quarterback. He is now 8 years into his career, is a stats machine, has never won a Super Bowl, though. And there he is at number 10. Speaking of never having won a Super Bowl, but putting up big numbers, Jim Kelly, a casualty, if you will, but if you talk to guys that played in the USFL, they don't regard it as having really injured their career at all. In fact, they celebrate those days. Jim Kelly put up huge numbers, historic numbers, in the precursor to the spread offense in Mouse Davis's spread attack down there. Jim Kelly played for the Houston Gamblers and then, of course, lit it up with the Bills. He'd been in 4 straight Super Bowls there. He's your 9th of all time. Troy Aikman, 3-time champion, is at number 8. Just ahead of him, another Dallas Cowboy, Roger Staubach, by a whisker. You can debate that one if you want to. I think Staubach ultimately a tick better. Speaking of which, Terry Bradshaw gets the nod over Staubach at number 6. We've debated this. Handsome Hank is one of the people who is skeptical about this, but head-to-head, you have 120 minutes of Super Bowl action, and Terry Bradshaw was a Super Bowl MVP a couple of times. One of those times against Staubach's Cowboys. I give it to Bradshaw by a whisker. And by the way, Bradshaw has 4 rings. There are 2 other guys in history that have that. So that puts him into lofty stratosphere. At number 5, Brett Favre. At number 4, John Elway. At 3, you might want to debate this one. Again, their careers just about wrapped up here. Dan Marino. Then at 2, Tom Brady, winner of 3 Super Bowls at this moment, as of Super Bowl 40, 3 rings, and number 1, still holding the crown, Joe Montana. Gelhar, how say you?
There's a lot that I like about this list, and there's stuff. I think it gets hairy in the middle here. The top, no complaints. I think it'd be hard to argue with Montana and Brady being at the top.
Are you cool with Marino?
Even though we hadn't quite seen Brady hit his peak, because we didn't get this 2007 season yet, and this was when he was more in his, 3,500-yard, 26 touchdown range. But, I mean, his postseason record kind of speaks for itself at that point.
He was a killer, though. That was by this point, he had established himself as a big-game killer.
We saw that in that first Super Bowl. You know, the infamous John Madden, I would take a knee here and go to overtime. Instead, they drive down the field. They get the Vinatieri field goal, and they beat the Rams.
Right.
This one's tough because Favre wasn't at the end of his career yet. But the things he had accomplished at this point, I feel, were greater in certain respects than what Elway and Marino had in their careers coming down. Let's not forget Favre was MVP 3 times in a row. Like, nobody else had ever done that before in the mid-'90s. And were it not for, a couple unfortunate things in the playoffs, Brett Favre might have a couple more rings. I'm not trying not to say this as a complete homer. He also did have some terrible games in the playoffs. Like, I think this, if we're doing this in 2005, was post when he had lost to Michael Vick in the playoffs, and also when he had thrown, I believe, 6 interceptions against the Rams in the playoffs. But the things that he had accomplished and just the player that he was on the field, too, I think Favre, if we're stacking these guys up, should probably be a little higher up the list. And I'm with Hank. I would flip Staubach and Bradshaw. I know he has 4 rings, but, he also had one of the historically greatest defenses to ever set foot on the gridiron.
I hear you, and people want to point all that out. But the thing with Bradshaw is that gets lost is that Bradshaw had one of the top 5 arms in NFL history. People like to swoon about Jay Cutler and Joe Flacco, and those are 2 of the greatest arms in history. But the thing that Bradshaw had going for him, not unlike Dan Marino and Aaron Rodgers, was he could rifle it in the blink of an eye. That he could unload that thing as fast as anybody, and early on at least he could run around a little bit. And again, he made the transition from being a conservative QB into being the main man in that offense, and never missing a beat. And 4 rings in 6 years is hard to refute. Only 2 other guys have had that many Super Bowl rings. So I'm going to keep Bradshaw there. Your point notwithstanding. I mean, the head-to-head. That's
that's
rare.
fair.
Do you have that at your disposal to break the tie if they're at all close?
I mean, it is a team game, though, and saying head-to-head, did John Elway really play – did he outplay Brett Favre in Super Bowl 32? I would say no.
Probably not. But
he gets that ring on the back of our colleague Terrell Davis.
He does, but here's the thing. Because I would probably move Elway ahead of Marino simply because of his ability to get out of the pocket to run. I mean, for all the great things Marino did, he was never known as being a mobile quarterback. And Elway was kind of that guy that you certainly had to keep an eye on
especially
defensively, especially earlier in his career. And even though, yes, Terrell Davis had a lot to do with that win, Elway wasn't quite the passenger that we saw from Peyton Manning.
I know Elway's going to get dented by that comparison.
He's always going to get hurt by that, and he was not. Peyton Manning was pretty much a passenger along that playoff ride this past year.
Yeah,
Elway was never that guy.
No.
And so I would probably flip flop Elway and Marino. And again, everything else in the middle really is. I won't say nebulous, but I think I could stay with Bradshaw ahead of Staubach.
The names that almost break through here that didn't: Warren Moon and Steve Young. Anyone else,
I feel like Steve Young.
Here? Well, I think those were the 2.
I feel like Steve Young should be, battling with Manning because at this point, Young maybe didn't have quite the numbers that Manning had, but he did have a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, I was that, and Dan Fouts we've slept on a little bit too here, and he never got over the hump either.
You know what stinks about Warren Moon is that it's almost we can't really count all of his stats in the USFL thing or the Canadian League because if you had all those numbers, I think he beats Brett Favre even now after Brett Favre is retired in most of those passing cumulative statistics.
So USFL is one of my favorite subjects for that reason.
He could sling it.
There are so many guys that would be, not so many, but there are a number of guys that would be in the Hall of Fame that had the USFL never existed, including Herschel Walker. Jim Kelly would be further up. Obviously, he's in the Hall, but would be further up the statistical all-time numbers had he not spent those 3 years. Mike Rozier would probably. Kelvin Bryant, great UNC running back. Anyway, what's interesting too, and we talked about this the other day, and it occurred to me after the fact. Marino and Elway, this is something that plagued them throughout their respective careers until Terrell Davis lands in Denver. People would always say the same thing. Well, Marino's never had a running game. Well, neither did Elway. Sammy Winder was his feature back for the majority of his career. Marino had even less than that. Mark Clayton was very good, but he's not a Hall of Famer. Mark Duper, O.J. McDuffie, Irving Fryer. Marino had some guys. Elway's best ever was Rod Smith.
Vance Johnson.
I mean, Rod Smith and Ed McCaffrey
Rod Smith was actually fantastic.
Very good duo for a long time.
They were fine. They were good, but again, they're equivalent to Mark Clayton and Mark Duper in my book. None of them are Hall of Famers, right? And so that's true for all those guys. You know who else that's true for? And I think everybody. It's funny how you can be a prisoner of the moment. If you polled Football America right now in 2016 about who's the best ever, almost across the board, it would be somebody who's current. There's no regard for anything that happened 11 minutes ago. That's the way narcissistic 21st century people tend to think, and maybe that's the way people always have thought about things. And yet, somehow, I feel like we don't appreciate Tom Brady enough. As much praise as Tom Brady has gotten.
Is that possible?
Who's his? Corey Dillon was very good. Corey Dillon, so he had a couple of years with him, but Antoine Smith and so fine, he had the Randy Moss experience for about a year plus, and that was that. I mean, really, I don't think we give him, and I know now he has Gronk, and so now it's a little bit different, but I still think that Tom Brady is the one. You can't even really talk about the Patriots dynasty because they're the only carryover is Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. You can't compare it to, I say the 21st century Patriots are better than the 70s Steelers or the 80s Niners. Why? Well, you're not talking about that. You're talking about two guys. That's the only consistent factor are those two fellas.
That's true. Which is I mean, the thing though too is when Brady was doing that with nobody around him is when he wasn't also putting up prolific numbers. Now that he has Gronk, who I'll just say it, I'm with Westling's said this before, and I'll echo the same sentiment. I think he's the greatest tight end to ever.
Westling, Dameshek's been saying that.
Gronkowski's the greatest tight end to ever set foot on a football field.
That's
and
correct.
now you see the difference that it makes for somebody like Tom Brady when he has Gronk. And, he's elevated his numbers and his game to new heights, and also the rules and the passing offenses in the NFL nowadays. But
the last thing is Eli Manning is going to the Hall of Fame.
No.
We agree on
I don't know. I mean, yeah, if he buys a ticket.
Well, I got
Peyton's
news for you.
enshrinement? Is that what we're talking about?
Right?
First of all, if he plays 2 more years, that's why they kept Ben McAdoo, was because if they had kept
To
Coughlin,
get Eli to the Hall of Fame.
if they had kept Coughlin, McAdoo would have left, and then that would have disrupted Eli. But now that they hold on to McAdoo, that means 2 more years in that offense with Odell Beckham. He's going to put up numbers that are going to make it beyond question.
No.
He's going to the Hall of Fame.
I just don't know.
No.
I just don't know. Because I think obviously he's got the 2 Super Bowls. That's undeniable. But I also think that we're going to start
Against
to
the
hit,
Patriots, don't forget, too.
True.
That matters.
but
Right.
we're going to start to hit a glut of quarterbacks and wide receivers getting in simply because of the way the rules change and the way the numbers have been inflated because of that. And I think Eli, when it comes time, is going to be looked at as kind of maybe not the poster child, but one of those guys who, okay, how much was because of Eli? How much of it because of the way the game has changed? And I think Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, these guys, Aaron Rodgers, even Drew Brees maybe, are guys that succeed in any era. Eli, 15 years ago, is he?
Oh, I
good?
think it's funny you say that because I go the other way. If Eli would have been around 25 years ago, he would have been better off than he is now.
Maybe.
Perhaps. This is what else I like to think about, and because the Hall, I have a lot of issues sometimes with how they vote players in. It's a weird system. It doesn't always seem to reflect the best players. It puts too much on maybe statistics or rings and things like that. When I think about like Brett Favre or John Elway or Dan Marino or any of these guys that are in the Hall of Fame or the guys that are going to go there like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and stuff, I can think of all these amazing plays or these amazing games or these amazing runs they went on. I come up blank when you ask me to do that for Eli Manning.
Except the helmet
Save
catch.
the helmet catch.
Except the helmet catch.
Honest to God.
Well,
Like, what else was remarkable about his second Super Bowl?
I love it that you say that, and it's so true.
He is the king of the Hall of Very Good.
It is true what you say, and yet if you actually take the emotion out of it and try to intellectually think about what were Eli's greatest stretches, he has plenty of those. He's done that. Well, how about when he went into Lambeau and beat the Packers for the
when
title?
Brett Favre threw a terrible interception.
How about when he went into
game?
13-3? When he went into 13-3 Dallas and
I think
took down Romo and company. He's had some.
He has had the best luck in the postseason too.
Oh, the Giants collection of Super Bowl teams is just gross.
And Eli, his runs in the postseason that have ended in the Super Bowl have been a couple of the luckiest.
But I will say, I think the best way to sum this up is when you're looking at a player, did you ever, for an extended period of time, consider him among the best of his era? And I think when you look back at Eli, I don't know that. I mean, you'll talk about Rodgers and Manning or Peyton Manning and Brady and maybe Breeze. I don't know.
Can't you say another name? You see how he keeps saying
and
the same
But I'm saying of the era, of that era.
Yeah,
I know.
And
I would like you to say Seven's name in that era.
Okay, Roethlisberger too. But I would say that I don't know that Eli gets into that group.
The way I would like to think about it is the sliding scale of all the quarterbacks Eli has been up against in his career. He's always at the back end of that scale. He's never at the top. Like new guys keep coming in. Like Russell Wilson's ahead of him in that scale, and
Andrew Luck at his
Andrew
best
Luck
is-
probably.
You know
Cam
what?
Newton,
I think it is.
Eli's always hanging around there
It
like
is
number
one of the
10.
most the Eli Manning go to the Hall of Fame thing is I'll be sad when that conversation is gone because it continues to be.
We'll
the
replace it
exact
with somebody
same.
else. You
Oh,
know?
yeah.
It
That's
is
all.
great. Well, rest assured, he's going to the Hall of Fame. Giants fans, don't listen to all the.
Well, I like Eli. He's a very good player. I just don't think he's going to the Hall.
You win 2 rings, and you're not Jim
Then-
Plunkett. You go to the
I
Hall
was
of
just going to
And
say
you're not
Jim
Jim
Plunkett.
Plunkett.
Those,
That's
are,
how it goes.
those were the next words out of my mouth. I'm glad you said that.
All right. The great Marcas Grant and Alex Gelhar, what a pleasure to see you fellas once again. Check in with us from Indy. We're going to the Combine, and Pat McAfee and Greg Olson and Ike Taylor and Maurice Jones-Drew and Handsome Hank and many other people will be out there to see us in the Hoosier State. It's a return of sorts for me. That's where I matriculated for 4 years. Sad I won't get to go down and see any Hoosier basketball, though.
No trips to Assembly Hall for you.
Nah, I know. I really wish I could find time for that, but I'm sure we'll have fun. So be on the lookout for that, and we will kibitz with you later in the week. In the meantime, thanks so much, football fans. It's been a thin slice of heaven. Now I'm going to make a basket. Watch this.
Enjoy the Combine.
Bang.
Oh, there it is.